Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2024. I'm Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister here at Sunshine Cathedral.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the Executive Minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ+ community. Surveys show that evangelical faith is the greatest justification for the tax on the LGBT community.
I am Reverend Kevin Tisdall, the Minister of Education. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you.
I am Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, the Minister of Connections. This is live, and then we are available on demand. We are available on all smart televisions and your favorite social media.
At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you're God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. 30 years before President Obama, President Jimmy Carter, a Christian, quoted the Bible on homosexuals. At 99 years old, Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, is revered for his forward-thinking approach to social justice, human rights, and environmental conservation. His legacy reflects a man who was ahead of his time, championing progressive ideas long before they gained widespread acceptance. This is visible in his support for gay rights, too. During his presidential campaign in 1976, he pledged to sign the Equality Act, an amendment to the 1964 Civil Rights Act aimed at preventing discrimination based on sexual orientation. In 1977, he welcomed the first gay delegation to the White House. He actively opposed California's Proposition 6, which sought to prohibit gays and lesbians from teaching in schools. Additionally, he became the first Democratic president to endorse gay rights and the party's platform in 1980. The devout, born-again Christian openly stated that he sees advocating for LGBTQ+ rights as fully consistent with the teachings of Jesus Christ. A meme showing Carter's advocacy for LGBTQ+ rights resurfaced in the public's eye this month via Reddit's MadeMeSmile forum. The viral quote was from the interview Carter had with the Huffington Post in 2012. He said, quote, "Homosexuality was well known in the ancient world, well before Christ was born, and Jesus never said a word about homosexuality," end quote. This interview occurred amid tense debates on LGBTQ+ rights in Washington, which coincided with President Obama's public endorsement of same-sex marriage. I have long loved President Carter.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about this as a kid growing up. He was actually the first president that I saw on TV. And so I just always have kind of followed his presidency and a lot of his policies ever since he was president, and just kind of always kind of retouched back with what he was doing and what was going on in the world at the time that he was president. You know, there was a lot of unique world when he was president and a very different time now. But I'm so appreciative of the comments that he has made, and I think continues to support to this day in a very kind of way, his support of the LGBTQ+ community. And just gratitude for him being the first president to really step out there in so many ways to hold the first LGBTQ session at the White House. And I believe our founder of the Metropolitan Community Churches, Reverend Elder Troy D. Perry, was among that first delegation as well. And it's also wonderful that Darrell, I know one of the first Carter women, one of the undersecretaries of the Department of Treasury as well. And so his legacy not only affected the nation in the United States, but also affected us today, still alive. And his policies and his teaching, I would love to be one of his students in his Sunday school class that he taught in Plains, Georgia, when he was teaching Sunday school at his local church, and just following him and his efforts to make the world and make the church a better place for all people. And I wish more people will continue to align with a lot of the things that President Jimmy Carter has done, especially his legacy around building homes for Habitat for Humanity. I mean, his legacy is surpassed any other president I think we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, he's as far as being a good person. You know what I mean? Like he's undeniably a good person. When we went to the Carter Center, and the staff, the volunteers, just raving about him. Like they love working. And they'll say sometimes he'll just walk in overalls, whatever, and a screwdriver because the light needs to be fixed. And like rather than calling someone, he's like, "Oh, I got it." And so yeah, I remember during the energy crisis. I mean, we had one with Nixon, we had one with Ford, we had on Carter. It seems like the whole 70s were energy crisis.
Yeah.
But And so I remember the commercial would say, keep your heat at 65, let's see, 65 in the winter and 78 in the summer, I think. And I don't know what he did in the summertime, but in the winter, like he would give interviews or whatever in a sweater.
Yes, the cardigan, yes.
Yes, because the White House was at 65 degrees. And so he was wearing a sweater. So that's the thing. Whatever you think about his policies, he was perfect integrity. He was an honest person, honest to a fault. When they said, had you ever cheated on your wife? He's like, well, I have, noticed some people, and the Bible says that. Don't even say that, Jimmy. You've been doing it wrong. But like, that's how honest he was. Well, like, someone catches my eye every once in a while. And to him, that was, he confessed it to the world. There hadn't been anybody like him.
No.
Before or since. He didn't campaign for re-election while we had hostages somewhere. He didn't even, there were campaigns going on. His wife campaigned, Secretary of State, Vice President. He campaigned not one day. Yeah. Who does that? Who has the fortitude to not even speak up for yourself when you're trying to get reelected? But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't use the hostage situation as this is what I'm going to do to get him back, or we got to stay together during this time of crisis. He did not use the situation to his benefit. I can't think of another, even the ones that I like, politician in my lifetime that would have had that strength of character. So someone that strong, that good. Of course he's not being mean to gay people. Of course he's not being mean to women. Of course he sees the sacred value in all people. Of course, for him, religion isn't who you can beat up, who you can exclude, who you can demonize. So it is consistent with the faith he has modeled and practiced for a century now that he would advocate for gay people or anyone who had been abused or targeted or left out or marginalized. I think not only is he an ideal person, he is certainly an ideal Christian. I think if more Christians were like him, we'd have more Christians.
Yep, I agree. Actually, I have such appreciation and respect for him. This is a man who has done his homework.
Yeah.
He has done his homework. He said homosexuality has been around for centuries, for millennia. I mean, this is not something that a born-again Christian would hear. This is a person who took some time and said, you know what, let me learn something. Let me find out something, educated themselves and said, you know what some of these people are advocating for is not Christian. It's not welcoming. It's not warm. We need to learn. And if more Christians would educate themselves, follow that example, the world would be a whole lot better.
And that's the whole thing with Jimmy Carter. He believed in education. He had degrees where he was able to be on one of our first nuclear submarines. I remember clearly the Carter administration. I remember that he followed the Nixon-Ford administration, and we talk often about how pendulums swing. Well, the pendulum had swung so far to the things that the Nixon regime did, where we truly needed some kind of cleansing. And Jimmy Carter, and I remember the interview in Playboy where he lusted in his heart, where he just spoke his truth as clearly as possible. I also remember that when he was elected and was in the White House, the trouble that he had with the media, because they portrayed him way too often as this bumpkin.
Peanut farmer.
A peanut farmer. The guy who would sit in front of a camera.
Also known as entrepreneur, by the way.
Yeah, big
Imagine that,
successful entrepreneur. But they would portray him sitting in his cardigan, telling America that America had a problem. And we did, and we do. I remember when the hostage crisis happened, and he did everything that he could, knowing that nothing was going to happen as long as
without
there was
one person dying,
race.
by the way.
Say it again?
Without one person dying, by the way.
One person dying.
During the exchange after the election, so that no president could get credit. So it's before Reagan's sworn in, but it says Jimmy's out. That's when they give it back.
During that
so that nobody could get
ceremony.
Credit or whatever.
Yes.
They played us Iran.
Yes.
But he did it. He handled the whole thing without trying to benefit personally from it. and we never lost a person.
Right.
Yeah.
And I look back at his administration as being the example that the other administrations really should follow. He was destroyed during the 4 years that he was president. Oh, he spent so much time controlling everything that he even had to schedule people for the White House tennis court. Meanwhile, this man, when he left office, probably was the best thing in the world for him because he was finally able to be himself and do the things that he wanted. Habitat for Humanity, going out there, building homes, going out there and negotiating with other countries to make sure that Americans were released without harm.
Monitoring elections, teaching at Emory.
Peace Accord.
Doing everything humanly possible.
Yes.
Now, that's a Christian. That's a guy who understood what it meant to do the right thing.
Israel and Egypt, that was
That
was
handshake.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
Remember
was
that? Yep.
Famous handshake.
yeah,
Yes.
that was historic.
Jimmy
All right.
Carter, where are you now? We know where you are,
Yeah.
but we need more like you.
We sure do appreciate you, President Carter. Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. And we are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.